Thank you for all the work you did on pulling this stuff together. It's quite comprehensive, and I could see that it incorporates the issues that Gaia raised. So I think it's great. I'm assuming that this going through it with you will be a prelude to us presenting it as a tool to the DPW. Is that how you envision this?
Um, I'm not sure exactly,
Okay.
to be honest, but hi Deb, are you there? I I think today I was going to go over the tools so Deb and Michelle understood it, but I saw Michelle's email that she might not be able to make it, so it is
Ye-
recording this.
Yeah. Yeah, Deb is here. Deborah's here. So we are recording it. Thank you, so that
Yes,
Michelle can take a look.
yes. So I feel like we're going over this so that Deborah and Michelle know how to use the tools so they can do that. I mean, we can do it with them, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm here, you guys. I had trouble I had to get on my phone. I don't know why I'm having trouble on my computer with Zoom lately. It's
Oh,
been like that. Yeah, it's been like that ever since the ice storm. So I'm just, I'm gonna, I don't know what's going on here. I'm gonna get off the computer if I can. See, it won't let me. Sorry about that, you guys. So I'm here. I'm gonna try to
Okay.
work with one of my other computers to see if I can get it to go, but this is not working.
I was just asking Amanda how she suggests we use this. For example, the way I saw it when I started reading through it last night and this morning was that if we could get a small group of people who informed about solid waste and recycling in Detroit, people in the Zero Waste Detroit and the Sustainable Community Farms Network, people like Sandra Turner from the Sierra Club, Margaret Weber, who's just retired from one of the early recycling drop-off stations. And we would get, let's say, 5 or 6 people, walk them through this, and then come out with a plan to present to the zero waste planners at the DPW. Is that a feasible scenario for how we would use this?
Neil, what we had talked about that got this whole thing going was, I believe, was Michelle. I forget whether it was Deb or Michelle who said when I went over the planning checklist, she came up with the idea of interviewing individual council members and individual department heads to get their input on this individually, because the point was made that each council member is advocating for a particular initiative, and they have, a piece of the pie that they're advocating for. And what going over the checklist would do would enable Zero Waste Detroit and Sustainable Community Farms to get input into what the whole might look like after they see what some of the options are, and why they're pursuing a particular item. Maybe because they thought of it, maybe because a constituent thought of it, maybe some vendor came in and pitched it to them. What the idea was to come up with their input, and then Deb and Michelle would review that input and put together a comprehensive piece. We don't have funding for Deb and Michelle to do all this work, to convene a meeting with other stakeholders would increase that workload on top of what was already proposed. It's a great idea, but that's what we had planned for a zero waste comprehensive planning process,
Right.
to have lots of meetings, not only with convening people, but also where people are at, meeting at their groups. And so it's up to Deb and Michelle how far they want to take this, how many places they want to go with it. And without new funding, I would be careful that we're not imposing expectations that are difficult to accomplish. And Deb, you can probably speak to the concern I'm addressing here, and see whether I'm on target or not. But that's my recollection of what we were trying to accomplish.
Well, I have one, if I could just ask Gary one question. What happens if we want to go to a city council person that's in charge of, let's say, District 5, I'm making this up, and that, how do we know that that person is going to know enough of the vocabulary of solid waste management and zero waste to make the checklist meaningful to that person?
The idea that I heard was that Deb and Michelle would be the ones explaining things to them to whatever degree they want.
Great.
And we could offer to have a group meeting, probably with Amanda, if need be, depending on the level of detail wanted. And we could do the meeting, probably Neil, you and me, with with council members to go over what those items mean.
Okay.
Without Amanda, I'm here today because I want to hear how Amanda presents all this stuff.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
We'd be able to prepare Deb and Michelle for doing that themselves, going to the council members and department heads.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
But Deb, did I get it right?
Well, you know, I'm beginning to wonder, Gary, what is in this, what is really right? I'm trying to figure out the best way. What Amanda has given us has really got me to thinking. Now, I am a true zero waste certified person. So I recognize a lot of the things that's here. I really like the way Amanda has it laid out because, you know, the zero waste true, that's a long drawn out process of going through a lot of things. And I'm the kind of person that book learning is good for me, but it really comes to me once I start putting my hands on it, you know, start with it. Now, my concern is looking at this because I didn't hear any outreach to any community. I think Michelle just joined.
Yeah.
I hear any outreach to any community members, which I don't know how we would do, because this seems like this is going to be kind of technical, it looks like. So my first thought is the City of Detroit Department of, you know, the Department of Public Works. You know, they are really the people, and you know, Maddie, we always have Maddie there, but I even think this might need to go a little bit higher, you know, maybe start there, because if we take this to the, say to the county, to the districts, you know, how will we explain this? So I think once this is presented and we find out what's actually going on with us according to this plan, Okay, so in other words, what kind of grants and things are already going on? Am I making sense? Are you kind of following me?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, that I believe it was Michelle that came up with the idea of doing the outreach one-on-one to city council, outreach one-on-one to department directors, and then with that input, the two of you would review the recommendations that came in and put it together in, this is what we heard, and that would be the advocacy statement that you would send to the city and or circulate to your network for their reviewing comments. Michelle, before you came on, Neil was raising, what are we going to do with this review today of the checklist? And we've been talking about that until you got here. So
I wanted to finish up with my thought. I get what my only concern is, how much information are we going to be able to get from the city council? I guess I was kind of envisioning us taking what was needed, because I don't think the city council really knows where we are on a lot of things when it comes around to zero waste.
I think they know some, Deborah. I think they know some.
I didn't say they didn't know any.
No, but let me
finish. Have you had a chance to look at the list?
I looked at the first list. I haven't had a chance to look at the new one that was sent out. I did look at the last one. However, just like Gary said, we should be meeting with those city council folks one-on-one. We should be meeting with the Department of Neighborhoods one-on-one. We can take that checklist as soon as Amanda go through and tell us, like, you know, maybe how to engage the folks with it. That's what we should be doing. We can go through that checklist with those individuals one-on-one, and then we could start not only that, but when we're moving and having meetings in the districts, we could also bring that sheet out to have people to break down and talk about some of the things that they would like to see or highlight what's there. And then that'll be a part of what Gary said, which will be our, what did you say, Gary? That'll be our advocacy.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be our advocacy.
I'm with you all the way on that. I guess my concern is, how much of this are they going to know? Amanda, help me out here. So where do people that?
I'm just saying, how would Amanda know that? How would she know how much they know? We're not going to know until we.
Wait a minute. Because they have worked with other municipalities. So I'm asking Neil, Amanda, and Gary, in your experience, how much of this, say, do the public officials know? That kind of thing. That's all I'm just asking. I'm just trying to ask a question. I'm not trying to be combative.
Sure. I'll give you my answer, then Gary and Amanda can. My answer in DC, all these years, I found that one city council person, and that usually is the chairperson of the committee that oversees solid waste. It's in DC, it's Environment and Transportation. That person and definitely knows what's going on with solid waste, and some of the other city council people that may be on that same committee. But I would say the majority of the city council person would not be up to speed on the zero waste terminology. That's my sense. Gary?
And that was all. That's all I was trying to, I'm not against talking to the people. I'm not against, whatever ideas anybody has that I'm working with. I am just asking questions for my own benefit. And that's what I was wondering going through these forms.
Yeah,
So can I ask a question? Is this call for Amanda to go through the list? Because I really should be in another, so I'm in Seattle and my folks are here. And so I stepped out so that I could come and learn this sheet so that I can engage some of the people that's here at this particular meeting. So not trying to be funny, but I kind of, needed to jump in and maybe jump out. So if
Maybe we should just go through it with Amanda and then we
Yes,
can discuss
yes,
it later.
please.
I agree that that's what we set up this meeting for, not the strategy.
Right,
So,
thank you.
Amanda, if you're okay presenting, that would be great.
Yes, of course. And yeah, just keep in mind that I don't know all of the strategy and everything you all have been working on for weeks and will continue to, although I know I've been briefed on it a little bit. So I might, I'm going to present this just how I normally would and how I actually use it on the job and how I will teach it in March with you guys in the class. So yeah, I'll go through that, and I'd like to share my screen. So Deborah, I'm not sure if you're on a phone, if you can see it as well.
I'm on the phone. I'll be able to see it, but not as large. I'm gonna try to get back on the computer.
Okay. Yeah, let me find and tell me what this looks like to you, because teaching this is difficult on a computer, to be honest. So do you see the spreadsheet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
policies, program, sector policies, programs,
Okay.
infrastructure.
Okay. So this is Zero Waste USA's updated tool for community planning. So this is, they've had this tool for years. I've used it for years and taught it, but in 2022, I updated this with Gary and Ruth's guidance. So this is our updated tool, and basically these tools, so there's actually 6 of them, they lead us through the planning process, and they go in order of complexity, but also in order of how we would actually work on a zero waste plan in a community. And again, I don't know everything about Detroit. So you guys, from what I've read, you've done a lot, but you're still working on things. So it's a little bit of a different city situation, but I'm just going to tell you how we approach it in general, and then
Can I ask
how
one question?
we use these tools. Yes.
Have you seen our Detroit Sustainability Action Agenda?
I have not seen that.
Okay.
I have read the Gaia report and the extended version of your case study and the short case study. And I did
Okay.
note that that was something maybe I should look at or
Okay,
ask
I'll
about or
send it
hear
to you.
about. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
So sometimes when we're working with a community, it's at the very start. They want a zero waste plan, but they haven't done anything with it yet. So as consultants, we go into the community with our liaison, working with somebody with the city or county. And the city is new for us as well. So if we get hired, we don't know anything about this city yet. So the checklist, which is the tool number 1, and the service analysis, which is tool number 2, both of these tools work together to allow us to know what the current situation is. So going into Detroit, if I hadn't read that Gaia report in October, I don't really know a whole lot about Detroit. These 2 tools, number 1 and number 2, the checklist and service analysis, would allow me as a consultant to learn about the city and to understand its current situation, meaning what do you have going on there related to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So getting specifically to this checklist, so the first tool, it is divided up into sectors. So column A are the sectors. So some initiatives, and the reason we call them initiatives and we talk about initiatives from the start of the planning process all the way to the end is because we as planners feel like communities need initiatives to get to zero waste. So these initiatives are either policies, programs, or different types of infrastructure. But some of those initiatives are community-wide. Some of them just relate to residents. Some just relate to the commercial sector, the self-haul, or the construction and demolition. So the policies, programs, and infrastructure are a way to categorize initiatives that will get a community to zero waste, basically our recommendations. And they're divided up by sector. So that is really how this checklist works. And this checklist, again, is a way for us to understand what is going on in the community or in the city. So sometimes, Deborah, and it looks like, did Michelle drop off? Or I don't see her on the screen. So, but this is being recorded, so she could watch it. Sometimes the checklist we actually give to our liaison who we're working with in the city. So if we have a city sustainability manager or a city public works director, we might actually give this checklist to them because they know their city more than us, and we might ask them to fill it out. But at the same time, we might fill it out literally by doing website research or talking to them. So sometimes it's a collaborative effort. We have working meetings where we talk to our liaison at the city and we actually ask these questions. So when we're going through this checklist, we literally try to figure out, does the city have any product policies, meaning bans or fees on anything related to materials? So we will literally put a yes if they did, or leave it blank. So this is really a working document, again, to get us to understand the current situation, what Detroit has, what they don't have. And another thing that is really good about this checklist is it can also serve as a wish list. So the whoever uses this, the students who we teach, or a consultant, or an organization like you, Deborah, that might use this, you can, you can create your own system, meaning you might want to highlight things, or you might want to add in other initiatives. This is customizable. You can use it the way that we have it set up, or if you want to write in notes, I can show you this one. This is the document I'm going to teach in the class in March, just the example of Gainesville. So this is literally how I've gone through and done this. So for programs, here, product stewardship. So yes, we have something with product stewardship. We have a policy that relates to the entire community in Gainesville, but it's just on pharmaceuticals for the zero waste ordinance we got passed in June. And here's another example where I put a yes over here, but I put a note in. So you can add notes literally when you're working in this checklist. And my note said, I don't know if that pops up for you guys. It says some education and outreach by the city and county, but not enough. There's education outreach by Zero Waste Gainesville and Repurpose Project, but still not enough. There's no comprehensive program on education and outreach. So again, if you find that you have some of this, which I read through the extended version of your case study. So based on that, I feel like I could fill this out for Detroit, because I found that you had a lot of this going on, but I imagine it's not full scale, like it doesn't reach everyone.
Amanda, let me, if I can make a comment at this point,
Yes.
just a point of information. Deborah's organization, Zero Waste Detroit, does provide outreach, community education and outreach. So we'll probably have good information there. But my main question is this: can you conceive of us, meaning Michelle, Deborah, you, me, Gary, giving this checklist to our liaison with the DPW, Madison Krause, who's been very cooperative, and we get along quite well. Would it make sense for us to go through, to ask her to go through this as she is preparing the zero waste plan for the city? Or do you think we should do it as a community and then present the results to Madison and her bosses, of course?
Right. So a lot of times we do this step, the checklist and service analysis, as like I said, as a step to get us to understand the current situation. And we often take that current situation to our stakeholder meetings.
Okay.
So if we have them as large stakeholder meetings or smaller, we have to know a little bit about what's going on. We don't have to know everything.
Mhm.
But obviously our planning process is stakeholder driven. So we would never create a zero waste plan and come up with the initiatives without the stakeholder input.
Got it.
So yes, I think the DPW liaison could absolutely fill this out. I think that Deborah and Michelle could fill this out just with your knowledge. I think that after reading a few of those reports, we could fill this out. But the point of this is to establish a current situation. So when you go to the stakeholders, you have that information that is somewhat baseline knowledge of what's going on already that will help lead them in the direction of coming up with, well, what are your barriers? Yeah, we understand that there's a little bit of community composting going on, but what are the barriers to getting the universal system? You know, for example, we understand that there's a ban on bans and that's a statewide issue, but is there anything being done locally? So that might be brought up as a stakeholder, not me as a consultant. So a stakeholder would be like, well, there's a barrier to getting to zero waste because statewide we have a ban on bans. How can we work on that in the zero waste plan? So this tool number 1 and tool number 2 kind of lead to the stakeholder engagement, which is so essential, whether if it's a large workshop or a focus group or, you know, several one-on-one meetings.
But again, that's a strategy on how to use this. Right now, we're trying to go through how to present it. That's the priority for this particular meeting.
Yes. So like I was saying, the other good thing about this is you can use this as a wish list, meaning obviously the blanks here for this one I filled out for Gainesville means we don't have it. So if you don't have it, it could be your wish list, whether you are a city employee, a consultant, or an activist. You could use this as a wish list no matter what hat you're wearing. And just as the start. And sometimes our city liaison absolutely do. They highlight what they think they want. And that's just one input from, you know, the city person. There are other stakeholders that obviously will give input. But so for example, you know, I've always wanted a tool lending library here in Gainesville. So I might highlight this if I chose to, do I want to do it this way? Yeah, I could do it that way. So I could highlight this as an activist or a stakeholder in Gainesville for our zero waste plan, because that's literally is something I've wanted. So you can use this checklist to identify what you have, to write comments in here like I've done, because sometimes you have it to some extent, but you don't have it full scale. You have it at some level of capacity. And sometimes you don't have it at all. And leaving it blank might be good enough. Or, but the thing about it is you don't need all of these initiatives in Detroit. Nobody needs all of these initiatives. So that's why highlighting, you know, some that you think are important might be good. Or when you talk to city council, you could have them highlight and they might pick out the individual programs that they're a champion of. And so maybe then you have 6 versions of this, you know, 6 different files. And, you know, maybe somebody's had interest was composting and another city council's interest was reuse or repair. And so they have different things possibly that are highlighted. So you could use it that way as well. That's basically one-on-one stakeholder input. So that is one way you could use it. Yes, Deborah. You're muted.
Yeah, you had to get on another computer, sorry.
Oh,
So I guess now, and thank you, Gary. I wrote that down, how to use this checklist. But as I was saying before, now say, let's do a scenario. Say that Michelle and I set up a meeting with a council person. Now say it's a council person that might be somewhat familiar, you know, with the environmental workings of Detroit. Now that person, I could see understanding this list. But if I was to give it to somebody who knew nothing about what I was talking about. I feel that then I would have to precede that conversation with some sort of a educational introduction as to what we're trying to do. Am I overthinking this or what?
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, was that a question for me? I can answer, but I'm
No,
not
that's
for
a
Gary.
question for you all, for Gary, for Neil, for whoever can answer it, or
Go
all
ahead,
of it.
Gary.
I think the idea, particularly with council, is you want to treat all of them equally. Basic
Okay.
rule of council relations.
I
So
agree.
that give them equal chance to have input. Some of them will be more knowledgeable and will want to respond, will want to meet with you. Some will not. And your job is not to make sure that everyone fills it out. It's to get the input from those who want to fill it out. So I think the strategy there is give it so every council member has the opportunity to do that. If they want a briefing in advance of filling it out, they would probably ask for that, and they might say something like, "This is way too much information." TMI.
Okay.
Let me just give you my comments on what I think is important in this arena, and that would be fine. You can just take down notes and say, great. All you're trying to do is give them an opportunity to provide input. The checklist is most often used with people who are knowledgeable. We don't usually go out to the community with this checklist. So when we meet with stakeholders and with the community groups, we won't show them this checklist. We'll show them a summary of what we've heard from others who have been more knowledgeably involved in all the policies, programs, and infrastructure, who've worked with the consultants to figure it out. So that's what I would say.
That makes plenty of sense. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, y'all.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm on the city's internet, so it was going in and out. But Gary, you said, so when we meet with the community, we don't take this sheet out with the community. We only use it with our council folks.
With the council members, you want to do one-on-one meetings was your idea, and I think it's a great one. Have them all have opportunity to respond to it, but you don't need to get them all to give you a response. They may throw up their hands and say, this is too much. And you can just say, well, just tell me what you'd like to see happen on waste and recycling, and jot down some notes. When you're meeting with the community, typically we've gone through this and with someone knowledgeable in the community or done our research, and we say, this is what we heard is here. Did we miss anything with the community? And they'll shout out a couple of things or jot them down, and we'll add them on to our summary, what's there. And then we'll say, is there, what would you like to see happen? And they don't need this checklist from the community stakeholders. They'll have their own ideas of what they wanted.
Got you. Okay. So with that being said, our District 2 person will be moving soon with her. I spoke with her yesterday. So yeah, she said something about us coming to the west side, and I told her we could definitely do that. That's not an issue. And the third week in March, we're going to have a meeting for District 5. And so we're just trying to figure out what date and what time. And that'll be our first zero waste meeting with the community.
Okay.
Now let me ask another question about our list. Now, when we take this list, because I'm really concerned about the community folks, and a lot of our community folks, you know, they know some things, but they don't know a lot of things. So Gary, would you think it would be behoove us to go with something that will introduce or tell our people what some of the verbiage means, or what we're talking about as far as the checklist goes, and then get their input from there?
Typically, we'll do a summary of what we've heard and then ask, is there stuff missing? So it's not educating them on all these different options. It's
Mhm.
saying, this is what we heard is here, this is what you've got, and this is what we've heard is wanted. Do you agree? Do you want to add something else to the list? They don't
Gotcha.
need to know what all these different words mean on this spreadsheet. The
No,
community.
I didn't mean all
Right.
the wording. I didn't mean
Right.
all the words. No, I'm not going that far. No,
Right,
I'm not,
right.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, and what we're doing with the stakeholders is everyone's got has a position about what they want to see the city do.
Mhm.
In waste and recycling, everyone's got something that their pet peeve or concern or opportunity that they want the city to pursue. So it's gathering those together and tailoring them to who, what's happening in the community. If someone's doing a reuse operation, they're going to advocate, we need more reuse support.
Okay. Okay.
And we capture, the community says you need more reuse support.
Gotcha.
That's the process.
Okay.
Yes, and when Gary says we take a summary of this is what I heard you have, that's basically our situation report, understanding what's going on in the community, which is what we get out of using these tools, or especially tool number 1 and tool number 2, a little bit of tool number 3 as well. And then that allows us to understand the baseline of what is going on in a community. You can take that to workshops and focus groups. And like Gary said, say, what are we missing or what do you want? And they absolutely are focused on generally on either a policy or a material type or some sort of infrastructure. So that is true that you do see that kind of hyper focus depending on what they work on or what they see in their neighborhood. And you just kind of take all of that in.
Okay, so yeah, I can see what he's saying now. Once we start engaging the residents and the community folk, we'll find out what their vision is, what they, like Gary said, what they want, what they know is existing. Cheryl, can you mute? Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. So thanks for that input.
Amanda, back to the presentation.
No, sure. So I feel like if you did want to take this checklist to anybody, even your DPW person or a city council person that you feel like would want to engage with you, but Gary's right. We usually don't take this out to stakeholders, but we do with our, our city or county liaison that we're working with. You would just describe it as, column A is the sectors, and then you have the policies, programs, and infrastructure. So just briefly describe how it's divided up and say that this is a way for us to inventory what we have now and then what we want. So it's that establishing your baseline of what you have, but it can be used as the wish list. What do we want? And by want, I mean need. I mean, it might be what you need, but it could be what you want as well, or what you feel like goes together to make the zero waste plan. And of course, this is what you want either as advocates or the city council person and DPD without the stakeholder input yet. But it all really comes together, what the knowledgeable city liaison ones and the advocates and the consultants like we are sometimes working with these tools combined with the stakeholders. So it all really goes together to create this. At the end, you'll have a list of initiatives. So a list of policies, a list of programs, and a list of infrastructure needs that we call initiatives as a whole. And those will what will be in your zero waste plan.
Okay,
So
okay.
those initiatives can be analyzed, they can be described, and they can come from the stakeholder outreach, but they can start from this list. They can be listed here. But this is not, again, you don't need everything on this list, and there might be things that aren't on this list, but it's something unique to Detroit, or you guys call it different, something different, but it is one of these. So you don't have to stick with just with these. You can be creative. You know, it might be called something else, but I feel like, yeah, you probably understand the checklist now.
So should we actually look at our Detroit sustainability agenda? Because some folks are very familiar with that. Should we look at that and maybe look at this spreadsheet and see what's connected and maybe what's overlaying, and maybe come out with some key pointers from that?
Michelle has the sustainability agenda. Could you make that available to us so we could take a look at it?
I will. Neil, I thought I sent it to you a long time ago.
Not right now, Michelle, not right now, when you get a chance.
Okay, I can send it to you. I just sent it to Amanda. So
Okay.
send it to you and Gary also again.
Yeah, please, that would be great.
Gotcha. I'm sending it now.
And the answer is yes, Michelle. Again, this gets into the strategy. I think once we hear the full presentation from Amanda, we'll have a better sense of that. But if you and Deb wanted to look at not only the sustainability agenda, but also the Gaia case study. The case study was actually more like a zero waste plan with recommendations. So if you look at both of those documents and highlight what you have and what you want according to the sustainability agenda, you could add those in with the highlights in one color, and then you could add another color for things that you would like to see that weren't in the sustainability agenda or in the Detroit Gaia case study, or that would be what you come up with at the end of your process, where as a result of all the discussion, you can highlight what's there, what was recommended already, and any new recommendations. And so far, Neil, Amanda, and I did take a look at the Detroit case study in the last couple of weeks to better prepare for this discussion today. And my impression is there's lots of programs recommended, particularly in the Detroit case study, but not as much of the policies and the infrastructure. That's where I'm expecting that you'll come up with some policies that need to be adopted, and what types of equipment, what types of facilities, MRFs, composting facilities, reuse facilities. Those are the types of things that I would expect you would want to be more specific about than has been addressed in the Detroit case study so far. You're muted now.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. Yeah, got you, Gary. Yeah, I didn't want y'all all the background noise. I'm in a city hall, so the building echo. So yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, and I might actually be able to get a stab at talking to a couple of the folks, because we have DPW is here, planning and development is here, demolition is here. We have one city council that's at large. Then we have the council from District 3, 2, 3, 6 are here. So yeah, we might be able to move this ball, pretty rapidly over the next maybe 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks.
Great.
Yeah, and like Gary was saying, you can color code this checklist based on the sustainability report, which yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but I will look at it in the email. And the case study I was reading over the weekend, the extended version on page 7 with the recommendations, those aren't presented exactly the way we would present them in a zero waste plan, but that's fine. But a lot of them read just like these are recommendations that we want in our zero waste plan that are needed to reach zero waste or get close. So you could take from that, which you guys probably have worked on, and basically bullet them, or find them in this checklist and highlight them in a certain color and color code that as coming from the extended version of the case study. Yeah, Deborah.
So Amanda, did you guys look at the entire case study, or did you just look at the Detroit case study?
So I read Guy's entire report back in October when it came out. I haven't reread it, but yeah, I read it. But I recently read the shorter case study, and then over the weekend, the longer Detroit case study. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
there were really some good recommendations in there that I would imagine came from you all, the stakeholders, because they seem very stakeholder driven, and they would be recommendations that
I think she interviewed quite a few people for this report.
It seemed like it. That's what it read a little bit to me. So I think you guys have a jump on these type of recommendations, which I think are great. So do you want me to continue with the rest of the tool, or was it just the checklist that you were mostly interested in learning about?
The checklist was what got them excited when I presented initially. If you on the service opportunities list, it might be good just to briefly go through that, but that we're not expecting Deb and Michelle to run try to figure all those types of details out. But if you can just do a quick overview of that one, it really was the checklist that I think we had talked about so far as something that could be the basis for the zero waste advocacy paper that would feed into the city's public works solid waste master plan document.
Okay, great. And keep in mind, Deborah and Michelle, that you all will be working with these tools for your project for the Zero Waste Associates course. So you may as well work through all of these with Detroit's data, because you're probably, I can't imagine you would pick a project other than Detroit to work on these tools with. So so you will get this presentation again. And so for the service analysis, again, this is tool number 2, and it works together with the checklist to establish the baseline knowledge or current situation. So the consultant or the student or the advocate working in a city really understands what's going on, and it helps you really organize the information around zero waste. So this tool is divided up into categories, and very similar to the 12 market categories. So we mentioned that introduction to zero waste in the class you both were in October, but there's actually 11 here. Don't tell Rick, but basically, or maybe there are 12, but it's the categories of these materials. So reusable goods, paper, glass, metal, rubber and plastic, textiles, wood, plants, food, soil, and ceramic, and chemicals. So basically, we want to identify through using this tool if the materials within these categories have a diversion opportunity in place. Is there a way to divert these materials right now in Detroit? Currently.
Okay. So is that where it goes as far as like the service code or sector?
Yes. So these have pull down menus, and if it like for surplus food, which I learned that you guys have a little bit of surplus food going on, and we put food that is for use for eating in reusable goods. That's just how we do it in our system. But sometimes food in material characterization studies, they even have a line item for edible food, unless it's at least the really good material characterization studies. So you can see it in a different category, but based on what study it is or how it's laid out. But just for example here, you might have a pickup system, meaning surplus food. And this is from the ICI. So ICI is up here, the industrial, commercial, and institutional. So you could put in here that, you know, some food is being picked up and taken to food banks.
Okay, now
Or
I have
just-
a question about that.
Yeah.
Now I thought of that when I read the explanation. So this wouldn't have anything to do with, say, a curbside or what Michelle is doing in some of her neighborhoods. Would that be the same thing? This is composting.
So this specific material type I just chose for this example is surplus food or food from gardens and crops being picked up. So it could be that I just chose pickup as the service type.
I understand.
Because I don't totally know Michelle's system, but you would pick up or you would choose whichever service code is there. But say for art materials and teacher supply, and I know this isn't true because I read a little bit about it, but that there's nothing going on. So you would say void, no service. And in here, you don't have to write anything if you don't want, or you can write something in here, just no service. This is something we need to work on. So for the most part, this identifies if there is diversion available right now for these material types. And again, we might not have all of the material types. We tried to cover everything, but we might be missing one, so you can write them in. But the point here is to really look at these void, no service, because this is an opportunity now. Oh, art materials or teacher supply, there's nothing going on there. Nobody's collecting those. We know that there's excess or surplus in the communities. And we also know that there are some schools that could use them, some teachers that need them. So this is just a way to identify the voids, because this helps you to understand the current situation, but also what initiatives might need to be recommended.
Okay, so Amanda, with this being said, looking at the reusable goods and that food surplus. So we have one city council member that is working on the Samaritan rule or the
Good Samaritan law.
Okay, so they're doing that, but the rest of the folks are not. So we do have that city council person that's working on this, and they're trying to get the food part down to a science, because right now they pick up from Kroger's, they pick up from Myers, and it's another supermarket that they pick up. So they pick it up, they take it to a place, and then they distribute it back out to the community. So the market is not really held accountable. It's more of individuals picking up what they want, because that's the problem. And that's why the Good Samaritan law is out, because folks don't want that that liability of folks trying to come back and sue. So would we, when we do these particular lists and checklists, so like would I say this comes from District 5 and that'll be here, but then when we look at the rest of the folks that are not, or do we just go ahead and like, if we know that it's out there, we just go ahead and put it in there, and then we know that it's already an avenue for it, but it's just spread it throughout the city?
Yeah,
So
this
that's
is sort of like a build on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good question. So this column F, we have here availability or capacity information. So you might want to put in here that that there is a program, but it's not citywide need policy to make it citywide or something like that.
Mhm, mhm.
So we had that in Gainesville where we had some cleaning on farms and picking up of surplus food at restaurants. And it was just because some restaurants wanted to do good. And we have, obviously, we have a food bank, everybody does. So there was a program set up, but we knew it wasn't at capacity. We've been working on food issues here for about 4.5 years. And so we finally made it a policy. We have 2 policies in place right now that are part of our zero waste ordinance, where all food generating businesses have to follow the food recovery hierarchy. So they have to donate their excess edible food. And so it just got passed June 2nd, 2022. So this
Mhm.
part is not enforced yet, and it will be a phase-in approach. But we knew that there was good stuff going on by some restaurants that wanted to do good, some grocery stores, and some nonprofits, but it wasn't to capacity. It wasn't regulated. Nobody had to report. Nobody, not, they didn't all have to do it. So we decided years ago that we wanted a policy, and it took us 2 or 3 years to get this passed, but we finally did. So I would have written in there similarly. We have a few programs. It's not
Okay.
citywide. It's not at capacity, meaning there's food going to the landfill that could have been rescued to eaten or rescued, for compost.
Right,
So,
because
Amanda,
we do
can I
have a
speak on-
couple more programs like that, Michelle, don't we? We've got Danielle, is that similar to what
She's
she's
included in that. She's included in that food
in
rescue.
in this one?
Yeah, she would be
that you-
included in that, what I'm talking about District 5.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so
Amanda,
Okay.
is it
So it's
possible
not
that
a
I can
void.
see that
It's not a
ordinance?
void. I'm sorry, Michelle.
Can I see that? Can you send me your ordinance, the ordinance that they have?
Yes.
Thank you, because that's one of the things that our council person wants us to do as far as committees is bring forth what ordinances we need to look at and how we need to work on some of those. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. So, yeah, you can go through this. And like I said, I imagine you guys will be doing this officially at some point, but like aluminum cans, if I know that you have an opt-in curbside program, so that would be for single family residents. And so we could put single family residents curbside for aluminum, but you might put over here that it's an opt-in program and you would like it to be universal, meaning everybody gets recycling services. You don't have to ask for it. And so the way that this is designed, it's a little bit involved, because if there is a material type that is treated differently by different sectors, you might have to insert a row and have it do it differently. So I really like spreadsheets and data and information. So to me, this seems really useful and helpful, but I know not everybody loves spreadsheets or intuitively knows how to use them. But ideally, if there was a material type that was managed differently, meaning it had a diversion system in place, but it was handled differently, like curbside for single family, but pickup for multifamily ICI, you would want to note that for aluminum cans. And so that's where it could get a little bit complicated, but hopefully not too complicated. Again, this is to establish your current situation. So when you go to the stakeholders, you have just that baseline knowledge. Somebody might be like, well, what is our recycling system? Because they just moved there and it wasn't clear, you would know.
So do we talk about the cans that are turned back in for dimes, that are deposits?
Yeah, you guys have a deposit system. I've never lived anywhere with a deposit system, so I can't visualize it. I mean, I've read about it and I know about it, but I don't actually physically, I've never really done it. So that would be noted here. And I don't think that I put a category for that because that was not on my radar. So maybe I need to update that. So, or you could just write it in that obviously you can drop off aluminum cans curbside also, right? They don't all have to go to
Right.
the system.
Some people just throw them in their recycle bin, they just throw them in the recycle bin because they know they're being recycled. but some people actually collect them. Some people leave them out for folks to get. And
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
and they can
And
go to a redemption center.
right. And so during COVID, a lot of it was shut down. They didn't do the
Ah,
returnables. And so October of not this past year, but year before that, they opened it back up. So they started doing machineries. So they brought in these real big machines, and people can walk up to the machines, put the cans and the bottles in the machine and print out a receipt, and then go turn the receipt in and get their money.
right, right. Yeah. So I would just recommend that you would write that in over here, that is another system. So I would think that you have capacity to capture all the aluminum cans in town based on your diversion options available. It does not mean everybody's using those. So that's different. You know, that's why we create universal systems. And sometimes we even go further to recommend policies that what's typically recyclable is not allowed in a landfill cart or allowed in the landfill if the city manages the landfill. Those are steps to go above and beyond. But this identifies if there are diversion options for the materials. So for example, aluminum, you guys have covered because you can divert it in a variety of ways, the redemption or curbside, or if it's a business, I'm sure they have a recycling dumpster if they subscribe to recycling, which I know they don't have to. Gary, do you want to add anything based on our update?
Not based on our update, but the question Michelle was raising about sample ordinances got me to go to the EPA Transforming Waste website to see what ordinances we have there, and I'll share my screen after you're done to highlight what I found on those mandatory recycling ordinances, just as an example of how the EPA tool works with the Zero Waste USA tools, which will be covered in the class in more detail as well. So,
yeah, I'm happy to let you share now, Gary, unless Michelle or Deborah, you have questions specifically on these two tools?
No. Just want to go ahead and see what Gary's talking about.
Sure.
We are like on a 10-minute break, and then we're going to leave and go for a tour. So I'm going to have to log off in a second.
okay, so what I did is I looked in the EPA tool for what are there in terms of mandates on businesses to require things to be done. And so if you have some businesses donating now, but not all of them, you could require as part of a mandatory or universal or community recycling ordinance that folks do things, and particularly for businesses and institutions. And this is a list with these are actual links to here, say District of Columbia provides a list to their actual ordinance, solid waste and sanitation regulations. So you can actually go click on any of these links to find examples of places that are doing what you'd like. Another category was examples of food rescue. These weren't the mandatory, but here's a list of those and some resource guides. EPA reduced wasted food, food donation guidance, how to end hunger, safe food handling. So these are all resources, again, with links to those resources that you can share with your city council. So the Zero Waste USA resources identify what we're trying to address, and the EPA website gets into has 100 different ideas, and you can, what I did at the top is I sorted initially for food, and I came up with all different ways of dealing with food, from neighborhood backyard composting, food pickup, food gleaning, food outreach, and on food pickup for donation is when I click on examples and resources, I come to that page that I showed earlier, with the examples and the hot links to all these different examples. So that's real briefly how this works. I didn't find under food the getting businesses to do it if they haven't been required to, and so then I put in ICI, which is institutional, commercial, and industrial, is what ICI stands for. In this list, it talks about by sector, which ones relate to institutions, businesses, in these categories. And again, these are different ways of adopting policies or programs. Universal requirements of service by requiring the haulers to provide the service is one idea. Mandatory requirements for businesses to sign up for recycling service is another way of approaching it. And that's the one I clicked on for examples for the mandatory subscription, where in Austin, they have a universal recycling ordinance requiring all properties to provide recycling services to their tenants and employees. And again, there's a lot of great.
Gary, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you find on this list anything, say if you wanted to look up reuse?
Yes, great question. Let's go to the top and put in reuse. And so under reuse, these are what's come up. So both in addressing in the plans, product fees, retailers taking back, fees on disposable items, EPR, materials exchange. Here's getting in more to the programmatic materials exchange, reuse promotions, reuse business network, develop a network of local businesses, adaptive reuse for buildings, recycling, reuse for C&D, reuse directory, social marketing, outreach and education, reuse workshops, reuse closet, flea markets, garage sales, reuse center for sale of used goods, reuse depot, center for hard to recycle materials. So, and that's 23 entries out of the 100 that pertain to reuse. And, and they give you these brief descriptions, and just for let's see, say the materials exchange. But if we go to the examples for the materials exchange, we click on examples and shows Donate NYC, Austin Materials Marketplace, LA County Max, Materials Exchange and Materials Marketplace is a software available from U.S. Business Council for Sustainable Development. And here's resources on that. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So it's a combination of using all these tools that we use to come up with a zero waste plan locally. And the more you get proficiency and understand how these tools work and can describe them to others, not necessarily how the tools work, but you'll get ideas. And if they want more information, this is a great starting point to give them more information. and then typically we'll Google search for further information and narrow it to more specific questions that have been raised. Okay, so I'm going to stop share.
I didn't know I was muted. Will we be working with that tool in our training?
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
yeah, it's, we're gonna teach it to you and then you'll be required to choose roughly 9 initiatives. Generally, the easiest way is to grab them from the 100 listed, although not all the students do. They have some unique initiatives in mind, and that's okay because it might be unique to their business or their community, something that's going on. So some people come to the class specifically with an agenda, basically. But yes, this tool will be used by you all in the class.
So I think that's pretty much your presentation. Is that right,
Yes.
Neda?
Yes.
So if you go back and look at the recording of today, you can extract what Amanda said to describe the particular tools. So when you're meeting with a city council person or city department director or a neighborhood group that's knowledgeable, you can describe the tool and then say, so we want your input. Does this prompt any ideas for you? And or if you have other ideas, give us your input. You take it, and then the planning is compiling all that into one document where everyone's wish list is included, and you figure out what everyone wants, and then you figure out how much it's going to cost, and what are the priorities, and what to do quickly, what to do long term, and how to address proposals like the MRF and composting proposals and anaerobic digestion proposals that are floating around in Detroit right now.
I'm very pleased to be getting into this. It's very helpful. My sense is that we're going to go through this training on March 1st, later this week. And then after that, we can all brainstorm as to how to use the tool after we have some familiarity with working on it. So I think this is extremely helpful.
And Amanda,
Yes.
when will the tools be covered? March 1st is the first of the classes. When will these tools be addressed?
Yeah, not till March 22nd. So the
Oh,
third
excuse me.
class.
I
Yeah, that's okay.
misunderstood. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We start on March 1st. We start on Wednesday, but we're going to talk about mostly communities Wednesday, the following Wednesday, businesses and institutions, and then March 22nd. We're going to dive into the tools and including the EPA tools, some more advanced tools on March 29th that won't be required, but we will ask you to actually use these tools. But I think you all will want to for Detroit, and you want to do Detroit for your project. I can't imagine that you wouldn't, but one of us will be your mentors, which I'd be happy to work with you on this during the month of April. And then, yeah, you really come up with, through using the tools, 9 initiatives that you want to recommend for your project. And then you present this as a PowerPoint to the rest of the group on April 26th. And so your project out of this class is a PowerPoint presentation, but it's based on the use of the tools and the thought process that would go into planning. And you guys are stakeholders, but sometimes students actually reach out to stakeholders or a city official. But you guys are the stakeholders, and you might be doing it at the same time anyway.
Well, this is incredibly timely because on April 28th, Zero Waste Detroit has a major, I'll call it a summit meeting. Well, Michelle and Deborah are involved. Who is the official host on the 28th, Deborah?
That's Michelle's group.
Oh, that's Michelle. Okay.
Yes.
I knew. Yeah.
It's the end of her contract. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say contract, grant that she had with the with some more folks. Yeah, it was a big grant.
Yeah. So depending upon how Michelle and Deborah want to handle it, we may be able to present our, classwork, so to speak, on the 28th for people to see what we did. Not that what we did is set in cement, but just to show our approach using the tools in this class setting.
And you know what, Neil, that's an excellent idea because I was also speaking to somebody while I was here because on the 29th, we're doing like a festival where people will be able to bring computers and medicine that they don't have that's been in, so Saturday we're going to be doing we're community members to be able to bring things that they're not using. We haven't thought about shredding yet, but Saturday, and I'll brief you some more on the plans with that. We're doing a solar event that evening. So that Saturday, it's from 11 to 3, and then we take a break for an hour to set up, and then we start back from 4 to 8 or something like that. But Friday night, I was thinking that we would be at my site outside. But what we can actually do is have the dinner at Wayne County Community College, but just actually have some folks at the farm where they can actually just walk and see what's going on. And then we can go back to Wayne County and show the presentation and have dinner and present our partners, our Philippine partners, with their award.
Great.
Okay.
So this will fit in very nicely. So it's perfect timing.
Great.
So, all right, I have to go,
if-
guys. Any questions for me before I leave?
Nope. See you on Wednesday.
See you on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate
All right, be well, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a great time.
If I
Um,
can stay warm, y'all. Oh, it's so cold.
Good luck.
Yes.
Amanda, I just want to make sure I have the dates. It's March 1, and after March 1, what are the classes?
March 8th,
8th,
the 22nd,
22nd,
29th,
29th.
and then April 26th. So roughly, it's exactly 4 weeks later.
Got it.
So it's 4 weeks
Oh,
of
that's
working
the
on
project.
the project. Mhm.
And April 26th is when the students present their work.
That's right. That's
Got it.
right. So Neil, you usually come in as an advisor, but you're coming as a student this
I'm a
time.
student. I love it. I'm back in school again. No, this is very appropriate, and I think quite frankly that we're going to impress the people at the DPW that we've thought out all this great detail, which you and Gary and others have thought out. But secondly, that we in this test case in our class, we'll have applied it with people who know what's going on, and this is our assessment, and people can look at it, learn, change it, and so forth. So I'm very pleased about all of this.
Me
Well,
too.
and one of the ideas, particularly for Deb to understand, is we got excited by the discussion with you and Michelle last meeting, and I see this as something that we can do with others around the country once we figure out how to make this happen with you guys. You guys are ahead of many. And with that Detroit case study from Gaia, just really well done, and so if we show how community groups could use the planning checklists to get more directly engaged with their community leaders, the elected officials and the city staff, it may be a way of pushing for zero waste at the local level without us having to do a community zero waste plan and all that goes involved with that, and getting all the funding together. As you've seen, it's been a challenge to do it the way we'd like to do it here. but because of you having the Gaia study and the sustainability agenda, you are really in a great position. And Public Works about to start their solid waste plan.
Right.
This is a really great opportunity for us to really short circuit and focus on what are the top probably 5 or 10 things you want to advocate for that haven't been clear before now, and through this process will become clear, hopefully.
Yes, and I appreciate you all. And before we get off, maybe I'm remiss for mentioning it now, but I wanted to get back to the document that Amanda's supposed to work on for us. Have we come to any conclusion on how we're going to proceed?
Is that a question for me?
The issue is the $3,000 to $4,000 analysis of the diversion potential coming out of the review of the planning checklist with everyone. So so the next steps on that, Neil was looking for some additional funding to match the local funding, but the work would be done probably a month or so from now, after you've done the outreach to whoever you decide to outreach to. You'll come up with a document that says these are our recommendations.
Gotcha.
Amanda will take that, your recommended strategy, look at what's the diversion potential, and provide that back to you to go into that final advocacy piece. So you'll be able to say this particular initiative, this policy will result in 10,000 tons of material, which will help us meet our diversion goals by 15%, or whatever the numbers are.
I kind of thought that, Gary, but as you can see, I asked a lot of questions because I want to make sure that my brain is really tapping into, but I thought that was the reason, but that's why I asked the question.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. And basically, once you have your list of initiatives, that's when we can analyze them. So you'll learn this in the class, that the tools start, they go in a specific order. And the order is based on what you need to know first, and then what you need to do in order. So the diversion potential, we teach it as an advanced tool, not because not everybody can do it. I think anybody could do it that put a little bit of time into it. Not everybody wants to do it. And also not everybody needs to do it in their job. But so we don't require it for the class, but I do introduce it so students understand the entire process that we actually do go through when working with a community. And so you'll learn a little bit about it. So once we get the handful of initiatives that are a priority, we'll do the diversion potential analysis.
I just want to add, Deborah, that first of all, thank you for committing the 1,500. I'm getting my letters out this week, but whether I raise additional money or not, we are going to do this.
Right.
So rest assured that come April and so forth, we're going to have this document prepared as the way Gary outlined it. It won't be a complete zero waste plan, but it will be a pathway to zero waste that the city and the community can pick up on.
Right. And I'm hoping that we get some more money. I'm all every day.
Well, I'm trying.
No, I'm trying to.
I know. It's frustrating, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
And it may be that what we come up with is 10 additional things on top of what the Gaia report had and the Sustainability Action Report agenda have come up with. So we might have a package of 3 documents that are the sustainability agenda, the Gaia case study, and these are 10 additional things that it's the combination of those that you want to see in the Detroit Solid Waste Master Plan that Public Works will be working on later this year. So it's that package that you want to advocate, probably want to advocate for all of it, and then I think that's the likely scenario that comes out of this.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So everyone have a great remainder of your Monday. I don't know what it's doing there, but it's been raining here and it's cold all day. So
It's
Stay
not cold
warm.
in Florida.
Yeah, but you have other problems in Florida, like the
Oh,
government.
we have plenty. We have plenty, but it's not sunshine and heat.
Thank you, everyone. And that was great, Amanda. Appreciate it.
yes, thank
you.
you, Amanda.
all.
Thank you, Gary,
You're
Neil.
welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.